The base is dropped on another edition of Soccer Down Here. It is a Thursday, and we are on the road thanks to the Flood Project, booking us at New Realm Brewing in Midtown Atlanta. Thanks, everybody, coming out tonight. We're getting ready for the MLS Cup Playoffs starting on Saturday. Atlanta United Sunday. You can watch on WSB, ABC, Big ABC. Game starts at 3:18. That's your kickoff time. Our broadcast on 92.9 The Game will start at 2:30 with myself and Mike Conti from the Yankees radio booth at Yankee Stadium, which means we'll probably be, John, about as close to the field sitting right here as we will be at Yankee Stadium.
You'll be calling a game from Staten Island, basically, when you're in the Bronx.
Hey, I'll be in the building. I'll hear things, but I'll be watching the game on a monitor. That's how this is going to go. It's a unique spot in the league because of the allegedly 70-yard wide pitch. Allegedly. Yeah. Peter Vermes vehemently disagrees with that.
Yes.
It's different for Atlanta United, and they haven't been there this season. There's a lot of players in this Atlanta United side who have not been there. But I also feel like this is an Atlanta United side that is built on playing in tight spaces, built on winning 1v1 duels, and they're one of the best teams in Major League Soccer in winning those duels. Even though a lot of players don't have that experience with it, a lot of players were not on that team in 2018 that won a playoff game at Yankee Stadium. I feel like this team is maybe better built to deal with Yankee Stadium than that team was.
So basically, me wearing my Dribblers Union sweat jacket was appropriate for this particular matchup.
Yes, I think it's going to come into play really, really importantly here. Because, look, when you get into the matchup between the teams, and we'll do this as the night goes on, New York City, their back six, however you spin it, if it's three center backs, if it's a line of four and two holding midfielders, they've done both this season. They've done both in the last couple months. It's not going to be first choice. It's not going to be close to first choice. Anton Tinnerholm has been lost for a while. 6 games he's missed. He's done for the year with an Achilles injury. Keaton Parks is now done. He missed decision day. He's not coming back. Gideon Zelalem, red-carded on decision day. He's not available to fill in the central midfield. Alexander Callens left Peruvian national team duty early, played 1 game. He might not be available. People are trying to figure out the NYC digital strategy where they've only shown pictures of him working out inside. I don't think he's been outside unless they're trying to pull a fast one on everybody.
Yes.
But he's not going to be 100%, I think, is a fair guess. So potentially missing 3 starters out of their back 6, Atlanta United's attackers, that dribblers union, is going to be able to run at a minimum, some backups.
Do you, in your mind, as you've been processing and studying for NYCFC and Atlanta United, do you, in your mind, have any idea how Ronny Deila will be setting something up to go up against this Atlanta United offense?
The thing I don't know is what he does in the midfield portion, because more often than not, since Anton Tinnerholm's been out, he's played James Sands as a right back in a 4-2-3-1. That is one way to handle it. James Sands, as in that position, isn't going to bomb forward like Tinnerholm did. He's really going to stay home. It kind of becomes a tilted 3-6-1 in a lot of ways. It makes it harder for a team to attack that side of the pitch. But Sands might be needed in the midfield. So then you're turning to Tavon Gray in a 4-2-3-1. When Tavon Gray got his first MLS start against Atlanta United a few weeks ago, he was playing wingback in a 3-5-2, 3-6-1 kind of shape. A little more secure defensively, not asked to do as much defensively. He hasn't started since that game. I don't know if Ronny Deila trusts him to play right back in this situation. So if you play Sands at right back, then what is the trust level on who tucks into the midfield? Is it Jesus Medina, who's played the 8 role some this season, who has honestly been in very bad form in the second half of the season? Does Medina drop in to play with Alfredo Morales, who I thought struggled against Atlanta a few weeks ago? Deila's going to have to figure out which one he feels the best about. I don't think he feels good about any of the options in front of him. My guess is he puts Sands on the back line, either as the right back or a center back for Callens if he can't start, and he risks it a little more in the midfield with a more attacking option there.
But you like what you've seen from Tavon Gray this season on the whole, yeah?
I mean, he hasn't played much. He's only started one game in his whole career. Right. So I thought he played pretty well, but he didn't play right back in a line of 4.
Right. And
you don't have the center backs to play 3 center backs in that situation if you have to put Sands somewhere else. So you can't protect him as much. I would be comfortable turning to him and playing Sands in the midfield because I think you're maybe in a better position there to secure against Atlanta's dangerous attack. But if Atlanta sees that lineup, then whoever is on that left side, whether it's Barco, whether it's Moreno, whether you move Araujo over there, it's going to be green light go all the time against Tavon Gray. And look, Gray can run with people, but is he as good of a defender as Sands would be there? Is it better to make your mistakes further away from your own goal with Medina or somebody else playing the 8, playing a double pivot? Or would you rather put Sands there to maybe head off things earlier? Then you're risking things more on your back line.
Right.
I don't, just because Dyla hasn't played Gray since that game, I don't think he plays Gray on the back line. I'm not expecting that.
When it comes to the offense, I know that the drawing card is Tati Castellanos. A lot of folks, that's the instant point of gravitation when you're staring at NYCFC if you haven't been watching them all year. Maxi Morales has always been a guy that's going to drive you crazy, and he's done that in the past against Atlanta United as well.
Yep.
Those, to me, that's A and B for the offense for NYCFC to look at on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and they're very different in the challenge that they present. Tati Castellanos has been involved in most of the goals for NYC this season. He is the talisman for this team. He creates almost as much as he scores. Very, very important up top, but you can cut off service to him. It's going to be hard to cut off service to Maxi Morales and Tati Castellanos. The thing about Maxi, though, is his age. He is an older player. Is he going to be able to run for 90, maybe 120, which you could be looking at in a playoff match? I don't think he has those legs. So if that's the case, can Atlanta deal with Castellanos through Miles Robinson or Alan Franco or Anton Walks if they play 3 in the back, which is another question? And then do you kind of take your chances with Maxi Morales and cut off his options to pass to and ask him to do things by himself? I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet. If that's the 2 I got to deal with, I can shut down Castellanos a lot easier and then ask Morales to have a turn back the clock game.
When it comes to Atlanta United, since you mentioned the back line and the defense, does your gut tell you one thing or another? Is it going to be 3 center backs with what NYCFC could throw at you? What's your gut?
I don't know. You've had time. If you want to go to a 4-2-3-1, there's been time to work on it. I think there's more balance with that shape. I think when Atlanta has gone there, now they've gone to 4-2-3-1 in very specific situations that it's not easy to compare and say, oh, well, they've looked better in a 4-2-3-1. Well, generally they've done that when they're chasing a game, not trying to secure a game.
Right.
This is a playoff game. It's a game where if you go to extra time, that's fine. How secure is Gonzalo Pineda in playing a line of 4? Because Bello and Lennon would then have far more defensive responsibilities. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I can't wait to see the lineup because it will give us, I think, a really big sense of the attitude for Atlanta United because both managers have maybe possibilities of what the opponent's going to do, and then they have to create a lineup sheet based off what they think the opponent's going to do. Then they're going to get the lineup sheet. I think Atlanta United could start in a 4-2-3-1 and end up in a 3-5-2, 3-4-3 if they need to with somebody like Santiago Sosa, who can drop into the back line if you want 3 center backs, but he can also play in the midfield if you want a 4-2-3-1. But Sosa hasn't played in a while. And are you ready to give him a start in his first MLS Cup playoff game and one of the biggest games in his career? I don't know where he is in terms of rhythm. We're not seeing all the practice sessions. We're not seeing everything. He has been training, so I don't know. I kind of lean to a 4-2-3-1 if Sosa is available because then it's easy to switch it. I just don't know if NYC could do something that makes you have to switch it because Castellanos pretty much operates by himself. When they've played Morales up there, he drops off. When they've played Santiago Rodriguez, he drops off or flares out wide. they don't really play two up top in a true way to where you can't get by with two center backs. I think you can make it work with Sosa if he's ready to go and you have complete trust in him.
You mentioned the pressure that could be there for the outside backs. In an environment like we have at Yankee Stadium, where it's active and reactive all at the same time, because things can turn in transition very, very quickly with that allegedly regulation pitch. Allegedly. And so I think that this is a unique challenge for both teams, obviously, because you're in a shorter, allegedly, location. But I think it's one of those unique challenges that you have to be ready for if you're especially an outside back for these transition opportunities that can happen almost instantaneously at points.
It's just the spacing's different. And if you're in a line of four, it doesn't matter the width of the pitch. You're going to have more defensive responsibilities than if you're a wing back in a line of 3/5. There's just not as many bodies. And that's one thing that Atlanta's done this season under Rob Valentino and then Gonzalo Pineda, and I'm sure they talked about it before Gonzalo actually got here. They felt like it was safer to have a third center back, to basically have a free safety in that kind of role. If things fell apart, you can clean it up there with Miles Robinson, with Anton Walks, with Alan Franco, and they've done a great job of that. If you only have two center backs, you don't have the free safety. You can flood the midfield. You can control the midfield a little bit more if you put one more there. And we've seen Gonzalo Pineda try to find a little bit of the best of both worlds with it, at times playing three of the four dangerous attackers, two holding midfielders, where it's almost a 3-2-3-2 or a 3-3-3-1. We've also seen that 4-2-3-1 at times. I think long-term, and we don't know all the moves that will happen in the offseason, but I think long-term this team will play in a 4-2-3-1. I think it gives the best balance. Right now, are they ready to make that transition in a playoff game? I don't know if they are. Bello and Lennon in transition moments, not too worried about them. I really like the possibility of Bello if Sands starts on the right, because if Sands starts and he stays home more, I think you can almost pin him with Barco or with Moreno staying up high, basically staying with him at all times. Because if Sands stays back, cool, you stay with him. He can't go anywhere. He can't impact the game. That frees up a 1v1 matchup for Bello with, it could be Santiago Rodriguez, it could be Tyler Magno, it could be Thiago. Any of those players can't defend Bello. And then when Bello gets forward, he creates a 2v1 against James Sands, who's a good defender, but not a great defender as a right back in space. If they start Sands at right back, I think it could end up really inviting a big day out of George Bello.
And that was my next point, was that with Bello coming down that left-hand side, with the relationships and the rhythm that he gets with whomever is there with him, whether it's Barco or whomever, you're seeing very dangerous opportunities able to be created by Atlanta United up against a back line, which is, and if I use the word makeshift, that's pretty much what it is. And so you're looking at possibilities, and especially for a George Bello, and his decision-making is going to be key here in trying to figure out, okay, when do I pull the trigger? Do I go ahead and do it? Do I go ahead with the cutback pass? Those kinds of things. I think that looking down Atlanta's left, I think, is going to be one of the focal points, I think, for the offense.
It's not about when he pulls the trigger. It's about creating the 2v1, because you want to create the 2v1 situation against Sands, because, one, he'll have a problem defending it. It's 2v1. Of course, anybody would. But then that pulls the center back over. That creates space. Dominoes start to fall apart there. And if you have Moreno, if you have Barco, if you have Araujo, and if you have Joseph, and you isolate the right back and pin him deep, and then he has to get help from a center back coming over, that creates angles and lanes to run into for the other attackers. You don't want Bello to pull the trigger too early. You're not even really worried about what he does in terms of when he does it. You want him to get down into the final third to create the 2v1 against Sands, so then NYC has to figure out what to do. It can work against Gray as well. Gray's more athletic. Gray is not as good of a defender as Sands. Positionally, he's going to be more of an issue, so you're going to have to give him a little bit of help. But if it's Sands there, I really think Atlanta can pick on him like no opponent that NYC has played with Sands playing right back.
And obviously, when you're in this environment where, Atlanta United has had success in the past, and a lot of other teams in Major League Soccer can't say that, when it comes to having success against NYCFC at Yankee Stadium.
No.
With the talent pool that Atlanta United has, I think that the starting 11 is going to be an interesting decision. Does anybody get left out where you can bring them in, say either at 45 if you need to, if you get that philosophical change that we've seen from Gonzalo Pineda, or at 60 where you're running folks and you have to think about 120 minutes? I think that there are options offensively depending on obviously what it looks like in that starting 11.
Yeah, and that's the other question is, does Gonzalo Pineda come into this and want a wild card to come off the bench? Because he's got the personnel to still have a very attack-minded team, but actually keep Moreno on the bench if he's not 100% and he can't play 120 minutes, if that's what it calls for. You could have him come in at 60 minutes. You could start Hosechu in that kind of central midfield role, and I think still do everything you want to do out of a 4-2-3-1 if that's what it comes down to. Because if you go full bore, best possible lineup, everybody's ready to go and can give you 120 minutes if they have to, and you're in a 4-2-3-1, I think that lineup is Brad in goal, obviously, Bello at left back, Robinson and Franco as your two center backs, probably Robinson on the left, Lennon at right back, Sosa, Hosechu as your two holding midfielders, and then you're attacking four, and you can move them around with Moreno centrally probably to start, Barco coming off the left, Araujo coming off the right, Joseph up top. If you go with the 3-3-3-1 or 3-4-3 or whatever we want to call it, you're bringing walks into that. You're sacrificing either Moreno or you're sacrificing Hosechu, depending on how you want to shape your midfield. Either way, when you look at the bench and you look at game changers on the bench, because when you get into the postseason, you have to think about that. Jake Mulroney's a game changer off the bench.
Yep.
Jurgen Dahm's been effective off the bench here late, and Jurgen Dahm might end up having his most impact ever in an Atlanta United shirt if he comes off the bench and needs to do that, to give that speed. Jurgen Dahm could end up being very important. Now, you don't really have the impact change for Joseph if he can't go 120. That has to concern you a little bit. But Joseph also showed in Cincinnati that if he is not 100% by the time you get to the 70th, 80th minute, he can still be effective. Even if he's not really able to run a whole lot, he's a little bit more of a fixed focal point for the attack to revolve around, he can still be effective there. And that just means that the rest of the team has to do the running for him. And I think everybody knows that at this point. Yeah. I mean, we know the situation with Joseph Martinez. If you have to go to the bench in terms of reserves defensively, if you go with four in the back, you have Anton Walks who can come on, play a couple different roles. You have George Campbell who can come on, and he can come into that midfield if needed as well, in a holding midfield spot where he's come in late in games. You've got Ronald Hernandez as well, who had an assist with Venezuela this week. You've got options. So no matter which way you go, 4-2-3-1, 3-3-3-1, 3-4-3, you've got options off the bench. You've got options in terms of your balance, options in terms of how you want to attack New York City. Gonzalo Pineda's in a pretty good spot with the 13, 14, 15 guys that are probably in consideration to start this match.
Two guys that you mentioned I want to get into a little bit.
Okay.
First one, Jurgen Dahm.
Yep.
And I think that what we've seen from Jurgen Dahm coming in as a substitute in the second half is that when you get Jurgen Dahm as close to full song as we've seen, I think we've seen the kind of impact that he can bring you off that right-hand side with the speed, especially late in a match, where if dudes are tired, they've been out there for 70 minutes, you bring in a Mulroney, you bring in a Dahm, that they can run at you and completely run you into the ground if you have the chance.
Yeah, and that's two speed merchants you can bring on late against a team that has really no defensive substitutions. You know, they've got Chris Gloucester, who hasn't played much this season at all. They've got Tor Aronson, who hasn't played in those defensive roles to lock down a game a whole lot. He's going to want to get forward a little bit more. They don't have an extra center back to bring on. They're not going to have an extra holding midfielder. So that's another element here. If you're Gonzalo Pineda and you're thinking about your strategy, do you want to hold somebody back to really go at them in the last 30 minutes? Kind of be smart, settle into the game, be secure. Something this team has talked about as the season has gone on. Be maybe a little more conservative early and find your way into the game. See what the opponent's going to do and then open up more as we go. I could see that being an approach. It would be a good approach against a team like New York City that, frankly, doesn't have much depth at all.
And then the other guy that I wanted to bring up was Mateus Osechu. And really the quiet, workmanlike ability that we've seen from him, where he doesn't get a whole lot of press, doesn't get a whole lot of notice, but he has been one of the lockdown guys for Atlanta United. You look at the numbers. If you go back and you haven't seen him and paid attention to it, you can always go back and look at the numbers. He's been one of the lockdown guys for Atlanta United this year.
Mateus Osechu is Darlington Nagbe without the hipster support. Like, he doesn't get that attention that Darlington Nagbe, gets a lot of love from the people who really dig into the game and dig into that. Darlington Nagbe's a wonderful player. Mateus Osechu, the numbers are really not that different than what Darlington Nagbe does. They're not, and he does a lot of the same things. He's so tough to get off the ball. He's so good in tight spaces. He connects passes. He doesn't give the ball away. He's got a little bit of flair at times. I think he's got a little bit more going forward than Nagbe does, but he doesn't get that acclaim. Look, that's good for Atlanta United, because then nobody's really looking at him coming into a game. They're not worried about how to deal with Mateus Osechu. But Mateus being healthy now and being comfortable after, I think a lot of people tried to write him off last year, moving to a new country, dealing with injuries at different points. It was a pandemic last year as well, like it is still, but very different last year.
Right.
That's tough. That's a really tough adjustment for somebody who's, fairly young. I think we're seeing the best of Mateus Osechu now and why he was valued, because I hate the hashtag blank replacement idea,
yeah.
But Osechu really is that hashtag Nagbe replacement in the way that he plays and what he brings to the team. He's just so important, and he doesn't get enough love for it.
And I think that that's key with the players that have been brought in over the last year plus, where they're on the other side of COVID-19 MLS seasons, and they're getting more acclimated. They're getting more comfortable.
Yeah.
They're getting the understanding of Major League Soccer that much more. And I think that speaks once again to what Atlanta United's front office saw in all of these acquisitions that are now a part of this process, that are now into that second season of the playoffs in year 2.
Look, you're just able to build your squad better. I mean, think about whatever your job situation is. Think about how last year was, where a lot of people were lucky to be able to work from home and work remotely, but you didn't see your coworkers, and a sports team, so much of the way that they play is built on the stuff off the field, off the training pitch, where, guys go out to lunch, guys go out to dinner, guys hang out. You weren't able to really do that last year. So somebody like Osechu coming in brand new, he didn't really get to become buddies with his teammates, and that is a huge factor. They've been able to do that more this year. They've been able to travel and really not sit in their hotel room because they're not allowed to leave it. They've been able to be pretty normal, and it's helped. And I think that's one reason why I don't think it's a coincidence you're seeing Osechu really start to get more comfortable and just fit in better.
And even with the notion of this season, where earlier this year, for Major League Soccer, it was game day travel. If it was within X number of hours, like the game that instantly pops into my head is the game at Foxborough.
100%.
Where Barco and Dom both left with injuries.
That's not an accident, because that was the trip that, in my opinion, MLS should have allowed the team to go the day before, because there's no way to get from here to Foxborough in less than 3 hours, because you've got to fly to either Boston or Providence and then bus for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. There's no other way. And when you combine the two, that's over 3 hours. And when you are a professional athlete and you fly day of the game, and then you're on a bus for 45 minutes on the road, probably an hour plus of getting on the bus, getting ready to pull out, pulling out, getting off, getting into the hotel, all that stuff. And then you're playing a few hours later. It's not an accident that Ezequiel Barco and Jurgen Damm both had muscle injuries in that game. That I'm sure that happened for other teams around the league too, but you had a much more difficult trip every time in the first half of the season. Atlanta was bad on the road the first half of the season. Funny how that turned around in the second half. I know there was a coaching change and other things, but just much more easy to prepare for a game on the road when you're able to get in, get some sleep, get up, do a team walk the morning before, do a video session, actually prepare like a professional athlete normally would.
I was going to say that when things are as normal as they can be and more normal than they were even earlier this season, you're seeing with the quality of athlete and the philosophy that Atlanta United has with their athletes, how things can be markedly different in a game day scenario and during a match.
We had a question from Niall on Twitch. He wanted to get into Ezequiel Barco being 5th in the voting for MLS Youth Player of the Year. Niall said the MLS bias train against Barco seems to keep on chugging. Yeah, I mean, the Canadian audience is very upset that Tavon Buchanan did not win that award. Ricardo Pepi won it.
Right.
When you look at the overall impact, Ezequiel Barco should have been a whole lot closer to first than he was. Should he have won it? Depends on how you value it. I mean, Buchanan, Pepi, and Barco are all very different players who do very different things. I've had the opportunity to watch Ezequiel Barco all season long. The wind is really picking up here at New Realm, by the way. Things are blowing away.
Not
and
my
John
fault.
Didn't do it this time.
Nope.
I think Barco does suffer from some of the national and, frankly, local narrative about, he dives too much. That's why he gets these fines for simulating.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't really done that much. I saw one today that, he frankly doesn't have much of a connection with Joseph.
What?
Yeah, that was an MLS affiliated writer who writes for the league website who wrote that. Not the writer that we have on our show because we picked very specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little shocking, but that's just where it is. I honestly don't think Ezequiel Barco really cares. I think he likes to prove people wrong, and he should be in consideration for best 11, which would be the bigger award for him. I think he deserves it. There's a lot of competition for those attacking spots, but I think he deserves consideration there. If he's not on the best 11, he should be on the second team. He should have been higher in this voting. I did find it interesting that, when you look at the vote and the percentages, a lot of the players and clubs voted for Buchanan. Overwhelmingly, the media voted for Pepi.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder who might know things a little bit better, the players in the league, the clubs, or the media in this case.
It's like I played with this guy. I played against this guy.
Yeah,
I know what's going on a match day.
Yeah, I found that interesting that it was so far out of whack. Things happen. We're going to get into the MLS Cup Playoffs as a whole as well. We also have some MLS news this evening. Bob Bradley not returning to LAFC. He was out of contract. We've talked about it plenty as the year's gone on. It was officially announced by both parties that he is not going to return. A lot of speculation he's going to end up in Toronto, where his son Michael is a central midfielder, where his brother Jeff is the director of communications.
Yep.
So it makes a lot of sense that he would end up in Toronto, Bradley family reunion, and it's a big job. And that's a pretty good landing spot if you're Bob Bradley. What I can't figure out is what direction LAFC goes in.
Right.
And I think this is something we got to talk about after some of the things that have come up this week. So Atlanta United signed Carlos Bocanegra to an extension. He's going to be the VP, technical director, general manager, all of those things for another number of years. When you compare what Atlanta United and what LAFC have done, frankly, I don't think there's much of a comparison.
Nope.
Because one team has an MLS Cup trophy, one team has a U.S. Open Cup trophy, and one team has a supporter shield, not in a balanced schedule. It was 2019. It was a little more balanced, but not a balanced schedule. And they have a final appearance in the CONCACAF Champions League when they didn't have to win a game in Mexico to get there.
True.
They don't have an MLS Cup final. They don't have a U.S. Open Cup final. Points per game in the regular season, it's 1.66 for LAFC in their first 4 years. It's 1.61 for Atlanta in their first 5 years. But I feel like one team is looked at one way and another team is looked at another way.
True.
LAFC, frankly, has not lived up to the hype.
Nope.
They don't have a trophy. They came in and it was going to be, hey, we're going to be bigger and better than Atlanta United. They had a great regular season in 2019. They lost in the Western Conference Final at home. At home to Seattle. They haven't done it. And now what direction do they go? Because Carlos Vela's out of contract. Diego Rossi's on loan in Turkey. Brian Rodriguez was already loaned out once. He's back. They've got other players that are potentially in the mix to leave, like Edward Atuesta. It could be a very different LAFC, and I have no idea who their coaching list is. There's not a domestic candidate that makes sense. They could go the assistant route. Ante Razov was a finalist for the Chicago job. He didn't get the Chicago job. He was an assistant at LAFC. Do you not promote, or do you promote him even though he didn't get the Chicago Fire job?
Right.
And how do you sell that to people?
Yeah.
You know, there's Preki in Seattle. There's Pat Noonan, who's been up for jobs. That's about it. Ezra Hendrickson is going to get the job in Chicago, it appears. He would have been somebody under consideration.
Because nobody's better than Ezra.
Yes, Ezra is great, and Ezra had some great songs in the mid-'90s.
Yes.
There's not a domestic candidate that makes sense. So then you're looking at Mexico. Do you go to try to hire Javier Aguirre from Monterrey? You're probably going to have to pay a lot of money. Do you go get Piojo's crazy self?
Yes.
Do you want to live with that? Do you want Piojo getting thrown out of games and on walkie-talkies in MLS? So that's going to go over well.
With the 32-52.
I mean, I'd be entertained by it.
Yes.
If LAFC wants to do that, it's probably not the smartest route.
No.
So then where do you go? Because then you're going internationally.
Right.
And there's not a lot of options, because we've been talking about this with Manchester United, with big clubs worldwide. There's not a lot of options out there, I think, for an LAFC internationally. If it's me, I'm looking at two people, and I'm going to make them tell me no, and I'm going to give them a bag of money to tell me no.
Okay.
Marcelo Gallardo at River Plate.
Yeah.
And he's not going to take it because he's going to go to Europe, but I'm going to make sure he tells me no. And the one they should hire, and they should cut a big check to do it, because he fits stylistically. He's a big name. He would be what LAFC wants to be. Andrea Pirlo.
Yeah.
Because Andrea Pirlo played good soccer at Juventus. They ran him out, and they went to somebody who's not playing good soccer in Max Allegri. Andrea Pirlo stylistically would fit. Andrea Pirlo in Los Angeles with the wonderful hair blowing in the breeze.
Oh, yeah.
Not far from the vineyards. I mean, probably open his own vineyard. He could do all of the publicity stuff that LAFC needs, and I think he'd win. I think he'd do well.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's got a better job out there for him. I think Frank Lampard would be somebody that I would consider, but I think he wants to be in the Premier League, and he's going to wait for that.
Right.
Paulo Fonseca, who nearly took the job here in Atlanta, he's been up for other jobs. I think he wants to be in Europe. Maybe that's different now that he hasn't gotten a job in Europe yet. But I think it's Andrea Pirlo, and if they don't get him or Gallardo, I think LAFC could really be looking at a big swing the other way, because there's not a whole lot of people to turn to.
You went through a lot of the names and the possible machinations where LAFC is concerned. When it comes to level of success, I have also not seen the level of criticism toward the front office and John Thorrington that we've seen in places like Atlanta in similar situations.
No, it hasn't happened. And because generally when you're getting 1.66 points per game, you're not going to get criticized. And I think if you're getting 1.61 points per game over 5 years, you shouldn't be getting criticized the way that you have.
Yeah.
I've been clear on that. I think, you know, there's a expectation at times that every move made by every front office should be 100% the perfect move, no failures ever, and that's just not realistic. It's never going to happen. And you also can't manage a team based off sentiment, and you can't run a roster based off sentiment. Sometimes you got to make moves, and you got to let people go, and you got to pay somebody else less money who can give you the same production. Got to make those decisions. It's hard decisions. It's tough, but that's what top clubs do. LAFC is now in a spot where maybe that criticism starts to come because they haven't really properly managed things. They didn't sell Diego Rossi. They're probably going to get nothing for him. If the ownership wants to just keep cutting checks, cool. Normally, they'd like to get a return for cutting those checks. They don't have an MLS Cup trophy as a return, and they're not going to get a whole lot of a transfer fee in a return. Brian Rodriguez, same thing. Vela's going to walk. Vela's either going to be back in Europe or Club America is going to throw some stupid amount of money at him, and he's finally going to play in Mexico. I don't think Vela's back in L.A. I don't know if you want to have him back after the last 2 years where he's been hurt most of the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
They don't have much to show for it. They're not going to bring in a big return.
But they just went up 2 places in the power rankings.
I'm sure they went up 3 places in the power rankings because we talked about how many points per game they've had. I just don't think they're going to be in a good position to be successful next year. I think it's going to flip. I think what you're going to see is in Los Angeles, and the Galaxy have kind of lucked out on this, the Galaxy are going to become the dominant team in L.A. again, and LAFC, they're going to have to rebuild a little bit. Because if they don't get Pirlo or they don't get Gallardo, they're going to probably hire an assistant who's going to need some time to grow.
I have more questions about LAFC going out the door here in 2021, heading toward 22, than I have a lot of other places because there are personnel things. I mean, we haven't even mentioned in between the sticks.
Well, they've never had a goalkeeper they can count on.
And I mean, that one for me is another one. I know that we've mentioned the whole Zimmerman situation.
They've had one center back they can really count on over the last 2 years.
And when you look at them, the notion is it's like, okay, we'll just outscore folks and play rock and roll soccer and try to put 5 on the board and make sure that we outdistance ourselves from everybody.
And look, MLS history will tell you that doesn't work. You can go back through 26 seasons now in MLS, and there's a couple outliers very, very early in the league's history where nobody was spending on defense. And actually 2019 Seattle was a team that averaged giving up about 1.5 goals per game. Outside of that, you got to be around giving up a goal a game defensively to win MLS Cup. And LAFC's never been anywhere really near that in big games. They're going to have to invest on that side of it. And I just don't know if they will. It depends on the next manager because I think Bob Bradley had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove that he could do it his way.
Exactly.
And he gave everything at it, and I'll give him a lot of credit for sticking to it, but he needed to really be a little more conservative at times, especially in big games, and he didn't want to do it. They signed Cristiano Arango, which is a really good signing.
Yes.
Really good signing. They've got that number 9 that they've needed for a while, but they've got to go hit a home run in the transfer market at center back. They've got to go hit a home run at goalkeeper. And if they lose a Tuesta, they've got to then go get a central midfielder because they traded Mark Anthony Kaye. It's not a good spot if you're LAFC right now without a manager and with a lot of questions about your roster. And not making the playoffs this year as well on top of it.
That too, with the expectations that are there in Los Angeles for LAFC. And for me specifically, you're looking at this with this new coach, and you know that there has to be some element of the glitz and glamour that's attached to it. It's LAFC. Therefore, there's that surface notion that it's got to be glitz and glamour in L.A. in quotation marks or something like that. There's always that part of
Hollywood.
That equation. Yeah, exactly. And if you hire an assistant, I mean, let's just say it's someone like an Ante Razov. Ante Razov, while he knows the structure.
Hey, be careful criticizing Ante Razov. He punched Piojo in the eye.
No, I'm not criticizing Ante Razov.
I don't want him punching me in the eye when we go to Los Angeles, John.
No. And if you ask Brian Dunstith about Ante Razov as well, he'll give you some background about.
He'll come running into the booth and go studs up on me and Mike just because you said something. I don't want that.
But no, what I'm saying is that if you were to bring in an Ante Razov, there's always going to be that percentage of folks who sit there and say it's not glitzy enough, it's not glamorous enough.
That's the balance,
and that's what you're looking for if you're LAFC. And I think that you're in a tough spot because you've got to win the press conference.
Yeah,
with the glitz and glamour in LA and all that other stuff.
Yeah, you don't have statues of Beckham and Donovan outside of Bank of California Stadium.
But at the same time, you risk that slide if things aren't philosophically when it comes to the players. You risk that slide that's continuing that we saw from this year. LAFC is in a very precarious spot right now when it comes to this hire, and then the folks that coach is going to want to bring in as a part of that 2022 LAFC.
So let me ask this.
Sure.
You like 70s classic rock.
Well, yes, I do. I was awake for some of it.
The Eagles, quintessential Southern California band,
Sure.
had a song that everybody knows, Hotel California.
Yeah, you're about right. I know where you're going.
And Hotel California is not a happy song by any stretch.
No. Kind of like Born in the USA is not a song about patriotism.
Yes, you might want to tell some people that.
Yeah.
Does or has LAFC turned into Hotel California
Absolutely.
for whoever the next manager is?
Absolutely.
It's not going to be an easy job.
They absolutely have turned into the Hotel California.
It's not going to be an easy job for whoever takes it. But they're not in the postseason. We don't have to talk about LAFC anymore because they're not playing anymore this season. We can talk about the games coming up.
True.
This weekend. And it starts with a game that I am sure everybody will get to see. Wonderfully played soccer, lots of connected passes, great dribbling, flair, all of the excitement you can imagine from Joga Bonito or the beautiful game in Chester, Pennsylvania with Philadelphia hosting the Red Bulls.
Right. While you were going to talk about this game, I was going to exercise my first time out and see where Scott Flood was.
Why are you why are you looking for Scott Flood?
So he can sit here and hold the microphone for a minute.
Okay, you can put the microphone down. It'll be okay.
Okay, well then I'm going to put the microphone down. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm exercising my first time out while
You're
talk about
calling
the
a
most
timeout. We don't have
exciting
timeouts.
The most
I'd walk
exciting
away.
game of the weekend in Philadelphia and Red Bull.
I'm glad that I'll probably be on a plane and miss this game. It's two teams that are just not interested in playing beautiful soccer. It's two teams that are destructive. I think Philadelphia can play better soccer. I think the Red Bulls are just a destructive force. It's going to be an ugly game. I think it'll be an entertaining game if you're a neutral and you're not looking for soccer like you'd see in places with, attacking and passing and dribbling and highlights. If you're looking for collisions, if you're looking for tackles, if you're looking for players bucking up to one another, then you'll get that in Philadelphia and the Red Bulls. I think it will be intense. I think it will be compelling. I don't think it will be good to watch, if that makes sense. Right now, Philadelphia is the favorite in this at home, which you would expect, plus 115 on SofaScore, and they're gambling for entertainment purposes only partners. The draw going to extra time is plus 220. Red Bulls are plus 250 to win this game in 90 minutes. I think Philadelphia gets it done. I think they have to struggle for it. I think it's a 1-0 kind of game. I think you're probably looking at somebody like a Jamiro Montero to make the difference because I think he can rise above some of the crud that is going to be on the field in this game in terms of just being destructive. One thing to keep in mind for Philly is Jim Curtin said it this week, Ilsinho has been back training, and Ilsinho is a guy who can play. And Ilsinho coming off the bench, if they need him, he is that break glass in case of emergency option. And Ilsinho might have to play a role in this one, and he's really given the Red Bulls problems in the past. So keep that in mind when it comes to this game, but I don't think he's needed. I think Philadelphia, I think they get it done here in regulation. It's narrow, it's not fun, but they get it done. Second game of the day on Saturday is an interesting game. Sporting Kansas City hosting Vancouver. Now, Sporting Kansas City is probably still feeling aggrieved at the lack of a handball call on Justin Glad of RSL. Sporting Kansas City could be watching the games this weekend rather than playing. They also are probably ignoring the hate mail in their direction about Tim Melia rock-bottoming a Seattle player in the goal, and Amadou Dia getting away with one of the worst tackles of the season. He got suspended afterwards, but he didn't get red-carded in that game. But they got robbed against RSL. LA Galaxy got robbed. They should be in the playoffs instead of RSL. And Sporting has to deal with a Vancouver team that, look, has nothing to lose. Vancouver is playing loose. Vancouver is an exciting team right now. They have one of the best signings mid-season in the league in Ryan Gauld, the Scottish playmaker. And Vancouver can 100% go into Kansas City and win. Now, Kansas City is getting Alan Pulido back. He is available. I don't know if he starts. Daniel Shalhoub is a contender for MVP. Johnny Russell's been really hot late in the season. Sporting Kansas City is the better team, but Vancouver is a team you don't want to see at this point, John, because they've got quality and they've got momentum right now. And they've got a manager who it looks like this team would run through a wall for.
And he seems to be having the most fun on social media of any manager that I've seen in quite some time. Basically saying, you know, if we had played our next game on short notice, we probably wouldn't have been in the best shape. I'm paraphrasing.
He said they were going to drink all night after getting into the postseason.
Yes.
He said they were going to drink all night long.
And when you have a guy like that that's been a part of this run that they're on, you definitely will run through a wall for a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to another song from the Eagles catalog, it probably was a tequila sunrise for those guys the next day. And look, that you go back to team building. Like, that's part of it. You've got a team that will fight for one another right now.
And when you have something like that, that is irreplaceable. When you can have something like that, considering the fight that Vancouver has had to get into the postseason, where they are right now, the momentum that they're on. You mentioned momentum, and to have something like that going into the playoffs is huge. Combine that with a manager that you will run through a wall for. All of these things are lining up for Vancouver in the positive for the weekend.
You got two players in Vancouver. One of them will definitely be on the all-underrated 11 that we'll unveil once the season is over, Brian White, with 12 goals this season. But another one, Christian Dahome, really dangerous player. And when you've got an attack with Gauld, with Deber Caicedo, with Dahome, with White, that's a problem for a team to defend. And Kansas City has had some of those moments this season where it's been like, wait a minute, what? You should be the best team in the West, and you're not.
Yeah.
They have some of. They had it last year in the postseason against San Jose, where it went to penalties. Kansas City's got to make a statement here that they are a contender to win. I think they have the quality to, but I don't believe in them right now. Vancouver can get the upset.
And you have a keeper in Maxime Crépeau, who has been known to save rapid fire. Just ask Atlanta United about his capabilities at BC
2019, that was one of the most ridiculous sequences I've ever watched.
But when you have a keeper like Maxime Crépeau, once again, you get a hot keeper or a solid keeper in the case of Crépeau to add to what you're seeing with all this firepower up top. It's a dangerous combination for a Sporting Kansas City team coming into the playoffs, kind of limping their way in, with Vancouver being the exact opposite coming into this match.
A lot of people on the Whitecap side that you probably haven't heard of, probably don't know very well, but some really good players in this group that can cause some problems for Sporting Kansas City. That's going to be a fun watch on Saturday in the second game of the day. Now, New York City and Atlanta is the early game on Sunday. The second game is Portland and Minnesota. Minnesota plus 250 on the board. Portland minus 105. The draw is plus 275. I don't think Minnesota can go and make anything happen here. Nico Moreno was on with us this morning from Seattle. So a little bit of salt, you might think, towards both of these teams. But he threw the salt more at Minnesota. And he said, watch Diego Chara and how he just is a pest to Emmanuel Reynoso. Just a pest all day. If Reynoso isn't firing for Minnesota, they don't have a chance.
I asked him if he thought that Minnesota was a poser or a pretender, and he said, yeah, they're a poser.
Yeah. Now, what Nico used this morning, and I'll throw this one out there to people who are watching or people who are going to watch later to tweet at us at Soccer Down Here, their response, as that annoying postseason player.
Yep.
We all have them in whatever teams we love. There's always been somebody on the other side who was just annoying. You wanted to see them get hit in the mouth. You wanted to see them get decked. He used Reggie Miller as that option, and Reggie Miller was that guy in the postseason. Chara can be that. Chara can absolutely be that for Portland. And in terms of taking away Minnesota's best option, Minnesota's probably got some PTSD from last year as well, where they were in the Western Conference Final in Seattle. They had the game in position to go to their first MLS Cup, and they blew it. They just blew it.
And we've seen in Minnesota them come unglued at points. they'll be in a match, and the emotions will go completely off the rails, and they will lose mental control in a situation where if they'd kept their head, the results may have been different. And when you have a Reggie Miller like pest coming after you, I honestly could see a situation where Minnesota turns and does something rash, and you end up with a red card, because if you're poked in the sternum enough, and you sit there and it's like, well, stop it, and they keep poking you, stop it, and they keep poking you, stop it. There's going to be that moment where you're going to sit there, take that hand, you're going to swipe at that dude who's poking you, and then you're going to want to take a swing at him.
Yeah, and that could happen with this Minnesota team dealing with somebody like Chara. He's got that Osvaldo Alonso in him a little bit, where he can be that guy that just gets under your skin and drives you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
2 games on Tuesday next week, Nashville and Orlando, Seattle and RSL. I think Seattle as a big favorite against RSL. They should take care of business. Yeah, they're maybe not 100% right now, but they're a much better team than RSL, who I think is just happy to be here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much to get into that one. The late game, 10:30 kick next Tuesday. Nashville, Orlando could be really interesting, because talking about teams who lose their cool in the postseason, Orlando is that team. We watched it last year where it was must-watch television because you didn't know if Nani was actually going to cry on the field because he was close. You didn't know if Mauricio Pereira was going to break somebody's leg because he tried. Mm-hmm. You didn't know if Juan was going to cry and break somebody's leg
because it looked like
he tried.
Wanted out. I mean, literally, he was trying to force a decision.
It was insane in over 2 games to watch Orlando just lose their minds in the postseason, which, hey, we've watched Orlando lose their minds in the regular season in the infamous Will Johnson game, and the plastic bottles being thrown all over the pitch in Orlando because of a horrible, horrible dive. But Orlando's got to continue to build on what they did on Decision Day, where they had to get a win in Montreal at Stade Saputo, and they did. And they took care of business. Can they continue to do that, or are they posers?
And you're going up against the Nashville team that has been very, very sound defensively, the way that Gary Smith initially wanted the team to be built. Then you add in all of the offensive pieces as well, and Nashville can frustrate the ever-living daylights out of you. And I think that in a game like this, you could see Orlando lose their minds with the steam coming out of their ears and have those moments where Nani is challenging the center ref and trying to get a call changed or flipped or what have you. You're going to have those moments and gaggles of influence that we see with Orlando going around a center ref trying to get things changed. And can they keep their cool? That is traditionally the biggest question I have for Orlando City in these pressure situations. Can they keep their cool under pressure?
I don't think they can. I don't. I think Nashville gets the win. I think when you look at the games this weekend, if I'm going to rank the likelihood of an upset, and that's the team on the road, the lower seed getting the win, I will go Atlanta as the best option because they're the best 5 seed. So I think they're the most likely option to get an upset. Mm-hmm. I think Red Bulls are next just because of chaos. I think Vancouver is next, so they're 3rd on this list. I would go Minnesota next, then Orlando, then Real Salt Lake.
Okay.
I have no belief in Orlando in getting this done.
No, I don't either. I just my level of anticipated frustration from Orlando leans it toward Nashville, and I mean it could be a 1-0 where it's a moment, and you have Orlando just completely coming off the rails and just coming unglued late, like in the 75th minute, where you have like 5 or 6 Orlando players, Nani in the centerpiece of that whole thing, sitting there and poking at officials and yelling and screaming and gesticulating and all that kind of stuff. I could see that somewhere 75th minute or beyond if Orlando City is trailing.
All right, we've got some bills to pay, John. Are you ready?
Sure, because I have copy here in my hand.
Are you going to do it in an old school style this time, or are you going to do it in some new style?
Well, you asked me to do it.
Do you want to think about a style for our friends at Eliminize?
No.
You got it?
Let me know how you want to play it.
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
All right. So we'll go old school for Eliminize.
John is going to tell us about our good friends at Toca Football and Eliminize.
Do you have a young soccer player in your family? Flash. Piece of information for you. Have you ever considered private instruction with a professional instructor to take your player's game to the next level? Here's how you do it, fans. Toca Football has 4, not quite 5, but more than 4 indoor soccer training centers in the Atlanta area. Their trainers utilize innovative technology and a fun environment to help improve your skill and decision-making. Give Toca Football a try. We're partnering, meaning SDH, is partnering with Toca Football to offer their listeners an opportunity to check out the revolutionary and fun Toca soccer training method for how much, Jason?
Free.
So book your how much?
Gratis.
Session now with the promo code DH. Go to tocafootball.com/program/Toca-training. tocafootball.com/program/TOCA-training. Or you can go to Soccer Down Here, click on the Toca Football ad, and get your favorite player's game to the next level today.
Are you going to do Toca Football like that too, or are you going to do something different?
I mean, I'd have to do a lemonize like that, considering I just read the Toca Football ad.
Or what, you want to do a lemonize something different?
No, I'll do a lemonize old school as well.
Go for it.
Plash, Lemonize Service, wants to thank you, their new customers, in November with a free estimate and special discount. Getting rid of those lingering bad odors from cigarettes, pets, and food, you might want to invite a Lemonize over for Thanksgiving if you have some extra spaces at your Thanksgiving table. If a Lemonize service can deliver odor-free clean fresh air at an affordable price within 24 hours, then it's something to be thankful for. Go to Lemonize.com/Atlanta. Remember, Lemonize.com, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta to see their November special. Happy Thanksgiving from everyone at a Lemonize service.
Will Lemonize clean up the mess that Orlando's going to make in Nashville?
That would be a different backslash if it's Orlando. You'd have to be /Nashville. I don't know if a Lemonize travels.
Just going to leave that one alone then.
I think you should.
Yeah, I should have known better. All right, before Andy Bunker runs out real fast, I have a question for you, and I have a question for Brian as well. The 92.9 Midday Show is hanging out, and we had a very important topic on the show this morning that got a lot of interest. So we know when there's rivalry games in college football, for example, there is some kind of thing on the line, right? Like the little brown jug, the Apple Cup.
Yes.
So Atlanta and Charlotte next year in MLS are going to hate one another because Charlotte's already come out and said, their owner came out and said, screw that city about Atlanta.
Yeah, at the opening press conference.
There needs to be something on the line. So what is it? We've come up so far with a fender from a NASCAR automobile. We've come up with a wrestling belt. That's what we have so far. And some kind of moonshine still or jug or something.
Like a bourbon barrel, maybe.
That one makes the most sense to me. Like alcohol related somehow, like a jug of moonshine, or maybe something barbecue related, because they fancy themselves some barbecue folks in North Carolina. Now they do it different than we do. They're more like a vinegar based type deal, and maybe like a rack of ribs or something like that, or I don't know. But that kind of just kind of think of like the things that the cities share culturally. Maybe that would,
The MVP gets the rack of ribs like the turkey leg for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like exactly. And then at the end of the game, you give it to whoever, and then they get to eat it at midfield.
You're on
so you got Joseph. They saw off the log. Exactly. So you got Joseph at midfield eating a rack of ribs after he scores a hat trick on him.
Saying Charlotte.
But here's the thing. So if you win into your Atlanta, you have like your standard sweet style rib, maybe from Fat Matt's or a Fox Brothers barbecue, and then Carolina, you got the mustard style Carolina barbecue, that whole kind. But then the winner has that one. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I like it. Thank you. We've solved the problem.
Barbecue bash.
Thank you, Midday Show from 92.9 again.
There we go. It's the barbecue bash.
I like it. Actually, this could really work.
See, Andy.
Thanks for coming out, guys. That could really work.
The barbecue bash.
It's going to be a big deal.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think anybody nationally understands this.
No.
Because they're like, Portland, Seattle,
Oh, not so fast,
Trafico.
my friend. Not so fast, my friend.
Oh, the Hudson River Derby. That's what they're going to be getting into. Atlanta, Charlotte is going to be nasty.
Yes. And then do you add Nashville into the mix and make it a three-way dance?
I mean, they could get on the barbecue side of it, I guess. I don't have a problem with Nashville being invited to the party. They haven't said screw that city yet.
No, they have not. Where it's been somewhat amicable when it started, it's kind of taken that turn with Atlanta and Nashville. But when Greg Tepper, the owner of Charlotte, comes out of the block, I mean, starter's pistol goes off at the first press conference, and he's starting to light a fire under Atlanta. It's like, okay, game on, A.
Uh-huh.
And then the first time that these two teams meet, first time at B of A, everyone from Atlanta that takes that 3 or 4 hour drive and goes to B of A and tries to turn that place upside down, that's going to be a spectacle.
The tailgates from Atlanta United fans in Charlotte for that first trip. Be some good eating, good music. It'll be a good party. It'll be
bad blood,
good and liquored up going into that game.
Yeah, so just to make sure that the kickoff is like 8:18 instead of a noon kick.
Yeah, well, they might want to make it a noon kick, to be perfectly honest. It might be like
for the Georgia, of everyone involved.
In Athens, you don't want the 7:30 game. The Athens police doesn't want it anyway. They want the noon kick.
Yes.
That's what Charlotte really should be demanding.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Department.
Because otherwise, and I will absolutely do it when Atlanta wins in Charlotte if it's a night game, I will say there's going to be some property destroyed tonight. I will say it because that's what it's going to turn into. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. I'm a little surprised that Charlotte's home opener is going to be with the LA Galaxy. Yeah. That's a big game for them. That's big. That's a big deal because Chicharito will draw a big crowd. There is a huge Mexican population around Charlotte that people might not really know about. The Mexican national team's done really well. Atlanta will take a lot of people up there. Charlotte will bring a lot of people down.
Oh, yeah.
That will be a really good, edgy rivalry. And I think it will be all the good things about a rivalry with two teams and two fan bases that don't like one another, but maybe without some of the stupidity that started early on with Orlando. I hope not. I don't get that sense out of Charlotte. I just think it will be two teams that don't like each other, two fan bases that don't like each other, but without people getting punched in the nose and bloody walking to the first game between the two teams and supporters group stuff getting stolen and hung up from the rafters because fans generally have access to hang things from the rafters of a stadium.
Bleachers, uprooting them from your stadium.
Just saying. I think it won't be like that, but I think it will have all the other animosity, which is a good thing.
Especially on social media with one particular member of the Atlanta United front office and how versatile he can be with what he does.
Waka Flocka might need to come up with a diss song for Charlotte already. That might be already in the works. It's going to be a lot of fun, and rivalries are what will help this league grow and will help take it to another level. I think something else that's going to help this league grow happened today, and it's the English Premier League TV rights deal. Yes. If you haven't seen it, NBC got the rights again for the next 6 years, paying reportedly $2.7 billion for a 6-year deal. That's a lot more than people expected. It's more than double what they paid for the last 6-year deal. They beat out, and allegedly, according to reports, who was it? It was Fox, and who else was involved in this?
It was...
I saw Warner attached
to
it. But
Prime, I think, was the third one.
Warner
and Amazon.
Okay, so it would have been Warner and Amazon, some kind of combination of that. They offered more, and the Premier League liked the deal from NBC because it's not always just about straight-up dollars. It's about how you do the programming, how it looks, what you commit to doing, all those kinds of things. And NBC answered all the questions that the Premier League had. But you have companies that were willing to pay more than $2.7 billion to get the Premier League. Is MLS right now the Premier League? No, it's not. Not in terms of revenue, not in terms of perception, not in terms of ratings. But how far is it truly off? The Premier League in their windows, and I'd love to know how they came to this number because I think I know what they did, and I don't think it's really a true representation of the average rating of a Premier League game. Around 600,000 is what is being reported for their windows. I think they might have taken the windows as an average, then averaged the windows. You get those big games in the 12:30s on NBC. The 7:30 game, if it is last year West Brom and Newcastle, is not drawing a large number.
Southampton, Burnley.
It ain't drawing a whole lot of people. If that's a 10 o'clock game, there aren't many people watching it. They have a bunch of those games too. That's just the nature of any league. You have dud games. 600,000. MLS ratings are up across the board, all the platforms. They're up on all the social networks. You're looking at around between 250 and 300,000, I think, depending on the network and depending on the outlet, because obviously like an ABC is going to do better than an ESPN2, a Fox is going to do better than an FS1, that kind of stuff. So it's a little hard to judge. But let's say 300.
Sure.
So half. All right. Is MLS going to get half of what was offered to the Premier League? No, they're probably not. But can they get a really good offer that can transform the league in its next deal that will start with the 2023 season? Yeah, I think they can. I think these numbers will help MLS in the long run, because when you start talking in the big general sports space about $2.7 billion for your TV rights for soccer, yes, it's the Premier League, MLS is going to benefit from that, in my opinion.
A couple of different things from what you were talking about. I think right now the current deal, and this includes both Spanish partner and English-speaking partner, it's 8 years at $720, I think, is what we're looking at for MLS right now in the current deal.
Yeah, I think that's right. $90 million a year when you combine everything, and it was 8 years. So yes, that's correct.
Okay, so $720 over 8, and obviously the Premier League looking at 6 at 2.7, double extra large.
Yep.
I would think that with this new deal coming up for MLS, you could see, and I mean, even if it's, let's see, 720, you're looking at 280. Basically, if it's a 30% increase in the rights fee, that's $1 billion right there.
Yeah, and that should be the bare minimum. And, oh, yeah, by the way, which hasn't been talked about yet with this, there's this little thing called the Leagues Cup that's going to be starting in 23. Perfectly timed with a new TV rights deal. They could sell that separate if they so choose. They could bundle that in. That's a game changer, because when you are Fox and you have Fox Deportes, you're going to kill it on the Leagues Cup with Fox Deportes. You're going to do very well with Fox as well. But straight out of the gate, Spanish language is going to kill it. If you are ESPN with ESPN Deportes, if you're MLS, I think you're looking at a couple different ways of spinning this, and this would be my strategy. You go to these partners and you say, I want to do all in with you, English-Spanish. So Univision, TUDN, you need an English language partner. And the games will be nationally televised on both of the partners, English and Spanish. So you don't get into the weird situation we get at times with TUDN and a Twitter feed in English or the SAP button, et cetera, et cetera. You say, look, you got to have a partner. Or you got to broadcast the games in English somewhere. Same for ESPN, same for Fox. If NBC wants to get in on it, if CBS wants to get in on it, okay, you want it? Maybe that's the partnership is Univision and CBS and Paramount. Maybe that's it. Is they pair up. Okay, fine, whatever. But you go and you do everything combined to where if it's a nationally televised game, it's not exclusive in Spanish on Univision and then not on an English network. That's one thing I would do. Second, I would be trying to get a very quick sense of how valuable the Leagues Cup is right now. Because is it going to be more valuable to lump it in and take that combined number with somebody over 1.3, 1.5 billion? Or is it better to take 1 to 1.1 billion from somebody and then sell that on top to somebody else? Is it going to be better to do what they have been doing? Split it between an ESPN, a Fox, and Univision, where there's different packages? Or is it going to be better to sell it all in to one? I think it's better to sell it all into one. And I think it's better to sell it all in English-Spanish to one partnership or one network. I think you'll get more money that way. MLS should explore that. If they do split it, they need to make sure the English language availability on the Univision games is much easier. That's a key in this next deal to me.
And I think to your point about being a solo partner, I think that that's what attracted the Premier League to the NBC bid, because NBC Universal, throughout all of their networks that are available to them, whether it's Universo, USA, which now is going to be getting the sports content as they try to morph USA with the death of NBCSN.
Yeah.
More games are going to be on NBC.
Yep.
From a soccer perspective, the Premier League looks at NBC Universo and NBC Universal and Comcast, and it's like, okay, you guys are just doing the one thing. You're doing the one league. We're locked in with you. And I think that they looked at that as like, okay, we think that we can dance with you because you're in that one lane of traffic. And I think that speaks to what should be done with the new MLS deal. You're dealing with that singular lane of traffic. You can work in the one partner, however many tentacles that one partner has, but you're at least dealing with one partner, and you're both going down the same road at the same time.
But that's a big difference in what MLS can do, because Spanish language rights to the Premier League outside of those big games aren't that valuable.
Right.
It's a bonus that they're being done for the Premier League. Spanish language rights to MLS are very valuable, and as we've seen with the U.S. men's national team, there have been games that the 2DN number has been better than the English language broadcast.
No question.
On FS1 or ESPN. It's been a better rating.
Yeah.
So in terms of involving a league that has a bigger footprint in the Spanish language market in the United States, that's MLS. And especially when Leagues Cup comes into the play, because that changes everything. I think MLS is very happy about these reported numbers. I think they're very happy about the numbers being reported as very large. I think it's going to benefit MLS in the long run. I just wonder who gets in, because if NBC had not gotten the Premier League, I think they would have had to get MLS. They would have been forced to do it. Whatever they would have spent, they would have had to do it, because they needed the volume. They needed the content. Now they're not in that boat. Does Paramount Plus go hard after it?
Sean McManus has said that just because we have what we have doesn't mean we're not chasing other things.
They can always go after it, and they've got the places to put it, too. ESPN has done it from day one with MLS. I don't think they want out. Fox, after questions about are they in the league business or are they in the event business, showed they're in the league business, is what they offered the Premier League, which is a prime property. I think Fox, and especially the Fox Deportes arm, would really want MLS back. So MLS is in the driver's seat, and I hope they take advantage of being in the driver's seat here. I really hope they push this. It could be transformational for the league, and it could be the thing that kicks these salary cap numbers up, the thing that kicks the spending up. It could be a game changer for Major League Soccer, like TV revenue has been for so many other leagues worldwide.
And you think about what's coming down the pike, not just this new deal in 23, but you're dealing with Qatar in 22, and this little thing called the World Cup in 26 that could be a showcase for the entire hemisphere for whomever has that Major League Soccer property across the board for that build-up. And then on the flip side, which is what we've been talking about with other properties, where you want to make an impact going into an event and carry that momentum on the other side, not sit there after the event is over and then try to figure out how to capitalize on momentum. You want momentum going in, and I think that whoever the partner is for this Major League Soccer deal can get that momentum on an upswing heading into 26 and heading over the other side.
That's where Fox becomes really interesting, because they've got the World Cup in 22 and 26. And if you're looking at it in 22, you're going straight from the MLS season, MLS Cup, straight into the World Cup. 26, it's going to be in the summer. You're going to have MLS at the beginning. You're going to have MLS after it. It's a huge opportunity for a Fox to grow MLS and grow their property that they've bought on the back of the biggest international sports property there is in the World Cup. And in 26, the World Cup in this region, which was transformational in 94. You don't have MLS without the World Cup. It doesn't happen. It's huge. It's a big opportunity for Major League Soccer, and I hope it has changed a little bit after the numbers that came out today. I really hope that it does. All right. We're going to take some questions. If you guys have them on the Twitch pitch, if you guys have them here, want to bring them up, we will take them. Some of our best questioners are in the building tonight.
They are. We have questions.
We could get very, very interesting with some of the questions this evening. They can be soccer-related. They can be not soccer-related. They can be whatever you guys want. We've got a little bit of time on that. We've talked about Bob Bradley. We've talked about some of the MLS awards. You're going to get more of those. NWSL final on Saturday. Still some questions about who will be available in that match. It does not look good for Mallory Pugh to be available for Chicago. Looks like Washington will be pretty close to full strength. I think Washington has to come in as the favorite, especially with that attack, and a player that if you have not seen, who I really think will be a mainstay on the U.S. women's national team very soon, in Trinity Rodman. Highly recommend watching that game on big CBS, noon. Kickoff will be just afternoon, probably 12:15 or so, on Saturday afternoon. Washington and Chicago from Louisville in the NWSL Championship.
They're anticipating, I think, that they've cleared over 10,000 tickets today. 30 different states, I believe, have folks who are going to be attending this at Lynn Family Stadium. A friend of the network, Jen Hildreth, I believe, is on the call for big CBS as the lead-in for that football conference that has a game at 3:30. And I want to see, I mean, obviously Trinity Rodman for me is a fantastic drawing card, especially for the casual audience who might be dipping in for something to watch before you get into college football, or if you're switching channels, that kind of a thing. For me, I want to see what it's going to be like for her in a championship stage. I want to see what the environment's going to be like. Might be interesting weather in Louisville that might hold attendance down a little bit. But I want to see what the response is in Louisville for this championship game. We know what Lou City and what Racing Louisville have meant to the soccer community there in Louisville and in the state of Kentucky. I just want to see what the rollout looks like and what the game is going to be. For the casual fan, obviously you're drawn to Trinity Rodman, but it is a championship game, and I think that it's worth a definite watch as your lead-in for your college football on your Saturday.
Some other big games on Saturday. USL League One, Greenville Triumph heading out to Omaha to face Union Omaha. Should have been the USL League One championship game last year. Omaha had a COVID outbreak and was not able to participate. Greenville were the champions of USL League One. Now we get this game, but it's going to be in Omaha. I don't know if we have numbers on this game yet.
I haven't seen any numbers
I have
yet.
not. I think Greenville has to go in as an underdog just because Omaha has been that good, and they're at home, so they have that advantage. It's a 5 o'clock kick on ESPN Plus.
I think it's on the Plus, yes.
It's definitely on the Plus. It might be on an ESPN over the air. Meetings this season, last time they played was October 9th in Omaha, and Greenville won that 1-0. Before that, they played in Greenville. It was a 1-1 draw. So Greenville's had the advantage this season. Do they get it here? We'll just have to wait and find out. I'm excited for the Greenville fans that we know. I'm excited for everything that Greenville's doing, but it's a big day for Omaha as well.
And we've had the chance to catch up with the front office of Union Omaha and the network in the past and seeing how things are developing there at Omaha. And you'd mentioned that this is that anticipated championship game from last year, and I know that Greenville fans are hanging their hat on the idea that they've gone out, the Triumph have gone out to Omaha, gotten a win already this year, and you've got two great attacks, two teams that are sound defensively. I don't think you could have asked for a better idea for a championship game in USL League One.
And then after USL League One's final, after the MLS playoff games on Saturday, you got conference finals in the USL Championship. Tampa Bay Rowdies hosting Louisville City.
Want to do one more? Hang on, there's a possibility of a trade.
Tom Brady wants a trade. Could he be coming home?
Yeah, trade. We're telling everyone.
She wants to be in LA.
I give you the new City Hall. Trade? Are you sure? Not a trade. I'm trading crypto. FTX, the best way to get in the game. He's trading crypto. Oh. Hey, y'all, it's not coming. Not coming.
We got this.
Rejoice! You made it just in time for the miracle.
Orange County hosting San Antonio. Nobody expected that game out west. Tampa Bay and Louisville are the top two teams that are left. That's a heavyweight fight. I think Tampa Bay, not just because they're at home, I think they're the better team. I think they're the more well-rounded team. We've seen them about as much as we've seen Louisville in terms of playing Atlanta United too. I think Tampa Bay is the better team.
I'm right there with you. I think that Tampa is the better team. Tampa, they've stomped on folks in the playoffs. They had 6 on the board in one of their games earlier. I think it was against FC Tulsa. They put 6 on the board against a 10-man Tulsa side. But we've seen Tampa Bay, and when you have players like Sebastian Guenzati and you have a Forrest Lasso and you've got quality players from front to back, it's going to be a big test for Lou City going on the road to Al Lang to go after Tampa Bay. But when you look at the West, when you had Phoenix go out early, that was one of the big shocks that we saw out West, where you had a lot of the favorites getting bumped off early, and you're seeing an RGV make a Cinderella run with Wilmer Cabrera as head coach. No one has anticipated Orange County and San Antonio for your Western Conference final.
No, nobody had that game.
And so I know a lot of folks might be looking at the Eastern Conference final as a de facto championship game just because of the seedings from what we've seen out West.
Yeah, I think it is. I think those two teams are better teams. I think Tampa Bay is the favorite to win it at this point. They were probably my favorite going in anyway.
Yeah.
I think they're the favorite with what's left in USL Championship. So Saturday, you've got MLS playoff games. You've got a USL League One final. You've got the NWSL final. You've got USL Championship semifinals, conference finals. Pretty much from noon until about midnight.
I was going to say.
You got games almost in a straight line. So a lot of great soccer to watch this weekend. Then there's Sunday. Then there's Atlanta United and New York City at Yankee Stadium. 3:18 kickoff. We'll be on the air on 92.9 The Game at 2:30 for our pregame show from Yankee Stadium. Mike and I will be live on the Soccer Down Here Twitch sometime between 12 and 1. Once we get to the stadium and get set up, we'll kind of give you the lay of the land. We won't have the lineups yet, but we'll get you set on game day from Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Be on the lookout for that. Make sure you're following us on social media at Soccer Down Here. Also, make sure you are following the show on Twitch, twitch.tv/Soccer Down Here. We got questions.
We do.
We're going to get into more. The first one is on Twitch from Dawn Star. Dawn asks, do you see Atlanta United go to penalties? I don't.
No.
I think with the attacking firepower with both teams, I think it will be decided on the pitch. I don't know if it's decided in 90, but I don't think you get kind of the teams canceling one another out and it going to penalties. I think it'll be decided on the pitch. I am not expecting penalties at all.
No, I'm not either. I think that it might take a little longer than 90, but I'm not anticipating it goes to PKs.
I don't know if it goes more than 90. I actually would not expect it to do that. I think it'll be a pretty open, entertaining, exciting game. I just don't think it will make it to penalties. I think it'll go. I think it'll be decided in 90. I really like Atlanta's chances. I really like where Atlanta United fits into this game. I think they can exploit some of the issues with New York City. I think they can take advantage of a makeshift defense and makeshift back six. I really like where Atlanta United is going into this match.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think that Atlanta United is one of the biggest underdogs on the board. I think
they're the biggest underdog on the board, according to the odds makers in Vegas and other places. Atlanta United is the biggest underdog of the MLS first-round matchups, which I do not understand.
No, I don't either. And so if you were to, this would probably be maybe even a mac and cheese Thanksgiving side dish that we would look at for an Atlanta United selection here. That's just me.
I don't know if I'd say they're the favorite. I think it's a toss-up game. I think it's a 50-50 kind of game. But I don't think Atlanta United's the biggest underdog on the board of the 6 games in the first round. I'm not buying that.
Would you like questions?
Yes, what questions do we have?
First one is from Ricky Ricardo.
No. Who let Ricky in?
And he's also sporting his Todd Gurley II jersey, by the way.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
With the Falcons, I believe, they're playing the New England Patriots this evening.
They are.
And that's coming up in just a little bit on other places, on other networks.
Yes, it is, actually, in just a little bit.
So Ricky's question is for both.
Okay.
Bob Bradley's out at LAFC. Who's next?
We talked about it earlier. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. I would make Marcelo Gallardo and or Andrea Pirlo tell me no. I would put a large bag of money in front of them and make them tell me no, because there's not a domestic candidate that is a slam dunk for them.
Right.
They also can't really afford to have a bunch of people tell them no, because then that dents their perception as well, since they are the glamour boys of Major League Soccer, and everything they do is so wonderful, except, that whole winning MLS Cups thing.
And they just went up 2 more points in the power rankings.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. There's not a slam dunk domestic candidate. There's not a slam dunk MLS experienced candidate. There's not somebody they can go steal within the league. There isn't that person. For me, Andrea Pirlo is the most likely and the one who benefits from taking the job, and the one who I think would be the most willing to take the job. I think Gallardo's going to go to Europe. Now, Gallardo's out of contract in December. If there's not an offer on the table, maybe he is willing to make this move.
Yeah.
He's obviously been interacting with Major League Soccer teams because of players going from River to Major League Soccer. He knows the league. He played in the league with DC United in a previous iteration of the league in 2008, but he knows what MLS is. I think he has bigger ambitions. Pirlo is the really interesting one that fits LA to me. He is the glamour boy. He is the guy who would fit into the LAFC bigger than everything lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Stylistically on the field, he fits that as well. He plays good soccer. I think he has good ideas about the game. And he's somebody who I don't think will get a bigger job anywhere else right now. I think he's kind of in a tough spot. He could come here and elevate himself and get a better job on the other side of it. I don't think there's anybody else in that kind of situation. Andrea Pirlo would be number 1 on the list for me.
Now, who's next? Looking at the modifier, were you also perhaps thinking who's next to be fired? Is that what you're looking at too?
What?
Well, who's next? Because he says Bob Bradley's out at LAFC. Who's next?
You're trying to put words in Ricky's mouth.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
So is it in my possession currently? Okay. So is it the one at the top of the list? Is it?
How many questions did Ricky submit, by the way?
Okay. All right.
Jeez.
So now, by request, I'm trying to find Ricky's second question.
He only submitted 2, John. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Well, but see, I'm trying to look at Eric's handwriting and try and find.
We're at the portion of the show where I need another beer.
Okay, Gabrielle. So I'm guessing that this one is from Ricky by process of elimination. Yes, it is.
The Mexican.
Okay, so here's Ricky's second question, which appears like it's an
Thank
opus.
you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Okay, so here's Ricky's second question.
Okay, we got Ricky's second question. Let's go.
Of course, it was the one at the bottom of the pile.
It's not that big of a pile, John.
Based on the conversation on the morning SDH.
Yes.
Surrounding the impending ATL NSH CLT rivalry.
Yep.
Rank these items in personal preference.
Rank the items in personal preference. Okay, how many items?
Continued. Turnover. All right, so.
You didn't have to read that part. I think that was just
signature
understood.
Food, hot chicken, Carolina barbecue chicken wings.
Wait a minute. How many categories are there first?
3.
There's 3 categories.
3
okay.
choices each.
Let's start with one at a time.
Yes.
Please.
Signature food.
Signature food. What are the options?
Hot chicken, Carolina barbecue, chicken wings.
Hot chicken can go in the dumpster out back. That stuff is nasty, and I'm not wasting my time with it. Number 1. That's at the bottom of the list.
So like number 8.
So what are the other 2?
Carolina barbecue and chicken wings.
Carolina barbecue 1, chicken wings 2.
I'll agree. Okay, so we're right there. So Carolina barbecue, chicken wings, and then hot chicken.
Hot chicken is about as overrated as LAFC at times.
Okay. Wrestlers.
Okay, let's go.
Dusty Rhodes, Jeff Jarrett, and JYD.
I would go with.
I'll go in that order.
I'd go Dusty, JYD, and Jarrett.
Okay.
Jarrett gets a bad rap because he won every match in TNA when he owned the company, which, it kind of happens that way. But no, Dusty is the greatest, and JYD was awesome. I had a JYD, like, one of those flexible, bendy wrestler figures that like Hasbro made in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
JYD and Roddy Piper were my 2 favorites.
All right, so early 2000s rappers.
Okay, early 2000s rappers. You've probably not heard of any of these.
Well, I've heard of one, and so therefore he would be at the top of my list. And Ricky did clarify, saying only Jason has to answer.
Okay, who are they?
Young Buck.
Do you know Young Buck?
Probably if you gave me a
You
song
don't
title.
know Young Buck. Who's next?
Petey Pablo.
Do you know Petey Pablo?
I know of, but I don't know music.
For me, creativity starts with what ifs. Like, what if it takes place in a white void? Or maybe beige? No, black. What if it's in suburbia? That's not right. What if it happens in the rain? Yeah, this is it. Now, create what's true to you.
Music.
Okay.
And then Luda.
And you know Ludacris.
Yes. So Luda for me would be number one, and I don't know the other two.
So it would be, and it's really hard for me to not put PD Pablo number one because I actually did DJ a PD Pablo performance.
Very nice.
Yeah, that happened.
Nice.
We started playing Raise Up at the club I DJ'd at in Athens really early on, and I know. I mean that's got to be it. But PD. Like, that song was out for a while. It was kind of bubbling up. I found it and loved it and started playing it. And it was like the pathway you would see with a new song in a club where you play it the first time in a spot where nobody knows it, but it's such a good song. Like, you start to see people reacting to it. The next few times I played it before it became a huge hit, like, you'd see people doing the Shirley helicopter deal. So it started to become a big deal. And then by the time we booked him, it was really starting to become a national hit, but it was a hit in our club.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't have an album out yet. So he came out to Athens to this club, and he did the song. He did the song twice. That was the only song he had out. Nobody knew anything else by him. And then he because the crowd was going nuts for him. He was awesome. Like, he was crazy.
So did he start the set and then end the set with it?
He did one song and then walked away, John. It's not like the Eagles playing for 2.5 hours, okay?
Okay.
He only had one song out.
Okay.
So he did one song. Then he went back to the VIP and drank
okay.
a lot.
There you go.
Then he came back and he did the song again later in the night when there were different people in the club.
Okay.
And he was lit. And he was awesome. And people were going nuts. And then he wanted to do something else, but he didn't have another song out. He didn't have anything else out. So he was buddies through Timbaland with Bubba Sparks.
Okay.
And he did Ugly by Bubba Sparks, which you've probably never heard.
Correct.
That was Bubba's first single, which had come out. It was obviously big in Athens because Bubba was representing Athens at the time. So PD Pablo was doing, like, the hype man parts as I was playing the Bubba Sparks record. And I'm, like, rapping over the Bubba parts. So nobody really heard me, which was for the best. And PD was doing the hype man parts on Ugly by Bubba Sparks, which is probably once in a lifetime kind of performance.
Oh my gosh.
So
Does
for
video
that,
exist of this?
No video doesn't exist of this. John, it was like 2001. Come on. No. And nobody, I was in the back. I'm DJing. Like, I'm sitting behind everybody. PD's out jumping around going nuts. So I will put PD first because Luda's awesome. Luda, I always wanted more from him, Ricky. I like Luda.
Is he the highest potential?
Yes, he didn't live up to his potential. Is that fair? Okay. There's other Atlanta guys I like better than Luda. And Young Buck was all right. I wasn't a big fan. He had the one hit. Yeah, he's at the bottom. From that era. Yeah, thanks, man. From any era, I mean, Outkast is my number one, no question. T.I. is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I can go deep into T.I.'s catalog. I'll go deeper. Like, when I'm looking at somebody that I rate in that way, it'll be how many songs deep do I go? Outkast, forget it. I can keep going. T.I., I can go a lot deeper than I can go on Luda. Goody Mob, I'll go deeper. Who else? I mean, Bubba's not an Atlanta guy, so I was in Athens when he was getting big, but I always loved Bubba Sparks, and he's got a lot of good stuff. He's actually had a lot of good stuff kind of lately that has been under the radar. Jermaine Dupri, I mean, even his performance stuff, like not getting into the production, he's pretty close to being on par. Like, that's the thing. Luda, like, his monster hits are monster hits. But then beyond that, I don't really go into album cuts. I don't really go into songs that I thought should have been a bigger hit. T.I. I will. Outkast I will. Goody Mob I will. I'll probably go Luda fourth out of that group. I'll go Luda fourth. And I'm 44 years old, so like the newer stuff, like the last decade, isn't really my stuff. So I don't get as into that era. There's great stuff in it, but I don't know it well enough. Like my era is the 95 to really 2005. That's where I'm going to be into it the most. Yeah, Luda's great, but I'm kind of like he didn't quite live up to the potential that I thought he had. I think he went for the fun, silly song too much, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it's good. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. Like, I like it, but T.I. for me would do a song that would make you angry. Like, T.I. would give you anger as an emotion. Luda did just a little bit. Yeah, it's true. Yep. I mean, and hey, you want to get real about in terms of overall number of songs I'm going to go to? Little John is in that conversation. Little John has a lot of stuff. If you really get down to it, I might put him ahead of Luda, to be honest. So that's,
you go off the
interesting.
board.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go different directions on that, but as an individual, T.I. would be the number one for me. Paper Trail is one of the best hip-hop records of all time, in my opinion, front to back. That, I mean, and again, this is my era. Like Aquemini by Outkast, Paper Trail by T.I., and outside of Atlanta, Blueprint by Jay-Z, the first Blueprint. Those are three that I'll listen to front to back, won't skip a thing. Yeah, John, especially Blueprint you might like.
Okay.
You might like Blueprint. There's some samples in there that you might recognize.
Yeah. See, I mean, for me,
I think so, but the samples might get him on Blueprint.
Yeah. I mean, for me, literally going off the board, when Danger Mouse did the Gray album, that for me was solid.
That's a little different.
Yeah, I know. But like I said, that's about where it is for me.
That's very, very different.
It's like I said, I'm in a different aisle in the grocery store completely.
Yes, you are. That's okay.
But that's nothing new.
I'll go to that aisle sometimes. Hey, lately, and that's why I mentioned the Eagles earlier, I randomly watched a Eagles documentary recently, and
Were they all angry at each other?
No, it was actually really good because that's what I always remembered them as, was they hated each other, but it didn't really come off that way. I was like, your blank space in music is hip hop.
Yes.
My blank space is classic rock.
Yeah.
Because I was like the schizophrenic kid who loved punk and alternative and like the mid-90s into the 2000s, REM and Cure and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all of that stuff. But I would also listen to Outkast and Belle Biv DeVoe and R&B and TLC. I mean, I love TLC and that kind of stuff. Classic rock, like I've went back and discovered a lot of things. Like I got into soul and Motown and funk and got into like some of the early formative punk stuff. But like classic rock, and the Eagles are as classic rock as it gets for classic rock.
Right.
I never had an affinity for it. And I watched the documentary and I've been listening to stuff, and there's some just brilliant songs in there that I will listen to and rock out to. Wasted Time by the Eagles. You want a song to really sit and listen to and think about? Wasted Time by the Eagles. There's your homework.
Okay.
Not yours. You know it.
Yes, I do.
There's other homework.
All right, 3 more questions.
3 more questions. That went off on a long tangent. That's fun.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, question from Gabrielle.
Okay.
Which team was least prepared for a snow game? Costa Rica in 2014 in Denver, or Mexico in Edmonton at the Brick?
Costa Rica, because I don't think there was a whole lot of knowledge that was coming before that. And I think they were trying to get it canceled and postponed, and they ended up not getting it canceled and postponed. Mexico knew what they were walking into, and they did the best they could with it. They honestly handled it a little bit better than I thought they would. It was, we talked about it coming into it. That game and those conditions hurt Canada too. But they hurt Mexico more because Mexico doesn't want to play in that way as much as Canada can deal with that better. But I think when you talk about Canada and the United States, you're not going to get into that same situation because the U.S. won't be as damaged by playing in cold weather conditions as Mexico was. So they want to play against the U.S. because they can play straight up with the U.S. and Mexico. They bet on the conditions being bad enough to disrupt Mexico, and Canada won the bet.
And if I can find the Atakugbo jump into the snow pile.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
As a poster, like as a print.
Yeah, that's going to be a classic moment in Canadian soccer history for sure.
2 final questions.
Hold on, a couple things going back to our music conversation.
Sure.
Will is yelling "Take It Easy" in the Twitch pitch, which is a great song as well, and everybody knows "Take It Easy."
That's right there.
I think where I've been lately.
I say, my brother, what did man do when they
tí nǹkan kan gbà wá láyé tí mo gbàgbọ́ ó ní pé àwa láàrin ọ̀pọ̀ ènìyàn má fira rẹ wọlé fún ènìyàn ìfisófò àsìkò ló já sí gba ìdùnnú ẹni tó jẹ́ do yanga with it. I beg, be yourself, express yourself, and most importantly, love yourself. I know I do.
Susie posted, I'll pass on VR, I'm not a gamer nerd. So jabs on a glacier, lunges on a volcano, and getting the best workout of your life is for gamer nerds? Come on, Susie.
Matt. I think I got my fantasy nights mixed up. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
You sure?
Yeah.
Snickers satisfies.
In my discovery of the Eagles has been some of the lesser hits that I didn't really know or I didn't really associate with them that much, stuff I had heard. Take It Easy, I think everybody kind of likes.
Yeah.
You know, like Peaceful, Easy Feeling,
Yes.
Tequila Sunrise, Heartache Tonight, which I didn't even know for a long time was the Eagles. I thought it was like Alabama or the Statler Brothers or something because it was like a country. Because it's a country song.
True.
It's totally a country song. It would fit right in country radio in 1981, 82. But other musical artists that have come up, Will is asking if y'all like Chris Ledoux, who I don't know very well at all. And I know Chris Ledoux through Garth Brooks.
Right, exactly.
I don't really know Chris Ledoux stuff. I will add that to my list as I've been trying to listen to different things and branch out more. I'll add that to the list. I know him. Yeah, I know of him. I just don't know his stuff well. Emilio says that Fleetwood Mac is the band that defines love-hate amongst themselves, which is 100% true.
Absolutely true.
Even more so than the Eagles.
How many relationships were in that band? Several. Too many.
How many different permutations as the camera tries to fly away here as the wind picks up?
Yeah, really? Well, it's locked into the computers. So
there was one. What could fall over? There was 1, 2, 3.
I know of 3.
3 for sure, and maybe more, but 3 for sure.
So yeah,
in
4
that band.
factorial would be the absolute number.
You didn't have that in the Eagles. You just did have one show that I did hear about on the documentary that was very entertaining, where somebody had the guitar player had disrespected a congressman's wife before the show, and you can actually hear it on the audio recordings of the show. The guitar player and Glenn Fry basically telling each other during the show, in between songs, I am going to kick your ass.
Nice.
And then, like, after the next song, meet me after the show out back. I'm going to hurt you. Then the other one's like, I'm going to kill you. Like, this is while they're playing a concert.
Absolutely.
It was the last show they played until 1994.
Yes.
It's crazy.
All right. So
Scott is sitting up here because he was cold.
Yes.
And we have heaters behind us.
That is true.
Well, and apparently there's a question coming for
Well,
there's a question coming for Scott. Oh, great.
Coming.
That's always fun. Da-da-da-da-da.
All right. So the first question that is not and the boss is actually chiming in about Fleetwood Mac.
Okay.
Taylor Swift sings this song about a boy who broke her heart. Stevie Nicks sings this song about how much she hates her ex and forces him to listen to it every night on tour.
Yeah, that's true. That I think Stevie Nicks won that one.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think she made him sing it. Actually,
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Like
it's like, here, you sing this part.
Yeah, it's not even like, he's just got to play guitar on it. Lindsey Buckingham, he's got to sing the song that is about how much he sucks.
Yeah, you sing this song, pal.
Yeah, I don't think Jake Gyllenhaal was all that worried about Taylor Swift's attack.
All right, so 2 questions left.
Both
2
questions
questions, Eric,
asked.
but the second one is the one that involves Scott.
Okay.
So, all right, so Eric, over. If 2018's postseason anthem was Nothing's Gonna Stop Us
Yes.
Now, what is 2021's postseason anthem?
See, I've been thinking about this because it's almost come up a couple times on the full-time report where we could have played Nothing's Gonna Stop Us, but I didn't want to play it because it's associated with 2018,
Yes.
so I avoided it.
True.
I don't know what it is right now. I don't know. It hasn't really emerged from the fan base. I haven't really seen any movement towards it. I mean, officially, you got the Waka Flocka song, which is pretty funny.
True, yes.
It was wild. I'll give you a peek behind the curtain on this one. So it was wild as we were in Cincinnati waiting on the plane to get refueled so we could get back home after the game.
9 hours
and
later.
the video came out, it was posted, and everybody was sharing it on like Instagram and TikTok. And when you would share it, if anybody had their volume up on their phone, it would play that first part of it. Brick Squad! It'd play that.
Yeah.
And that's just like going off all over the bus.
Oh, that's great.
In different parts of the bus as everybody was sharing that video.
There
It was
you go.
ridiculous. I got to think about this because I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, when you're going for an anthem like that, like you need something that's universal.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go with something that John looks at like, I don't know what that is. I can't go with that.
You meddling kids, I have no earthly idea what that song is.
Get off my lawn.
Basically,
you can't go
yes.
with that song.
No,
So
you can't.
you got to find something that can appeal to a broader base.
Yes.
And I don't know what that is at this moment. I'm going to think about it, though,
Okay.
and maybe have a suggestion if things go well on Sunday. It might get played in the full-time report.
There you go. I have in my hand the last question of the evening.
J-Dub recommends the boys are back in town, which is always a good one for
Yes.
these kinds of things.
Yes.
I have no problem with that, but I think we can do a little better.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
last question of the evening.
Last question of the evening. For all, but mostly Scott.
Okay.
Over.
He can answer last.
Yeah, okay. So, if you were a question, what would you be?
If you were a question?
If you were a question, which question would you be? Yeah,
what in the world are you doing?
It's a double. It's basically it's a quotation.
Okay.
Off of a quote.
Now I understand it after that intro.
Yes.
So if you were a
question
of stop. If you were a question of if you were a question,
yes,
what would you be?
Yes.
Maybe is a better way to explain it.
Yeah.
What would I be? I mean, it definitely has something to do with music.
Yeah.
So if I was a question, I would be what song defines your life? That would be my if I was a question.
Okay. All right. So if I were a question.
If you were a question, what question would you be?
Sure. Go ahead and read it.
Scott's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the homework yet.
If I were a question, what question would I be?
J-Dub's confused too watching. It was a little difficult.
I mean, since you took music, I'm going to have to go in a different direction here. So if I were that, wow.
Scott, do you have an answer on this? Because John doesn't have one right now.
My brain is.
I'm not ready to order yet. Y'all go ahead.
Do I have to come up with more? So if John was a question, what question would he be? It would be, where do you plug this into?
True. Yeah, exactly.
That would be the question for
Actually,
John.
yeah, here we go. How do you make this work? That's my question.
That would be the question that defines John.
Yeah. How do you make this work?
What would be the question for Scott?
Is this decaf?
Okay. I don't think Scott needs caffeinated beverages.
No,
very
he's naturally
much.
caffeinated.
Yeah. I don't think that matters. He's still thinking over there.
What? So we'll have to fill.
Do you have a question that you would be?
If you were an energy drink, which one would know?
Crunk juice. That's what I would be.
Did y'all just hear Jesus? I heard Jesus. Did you hear God?
Crunk juice. That's what I would be.
There it goes again. Jesus is a woman.
Yeah, that I think most people subscribe to that.
If you were a
question, what would your question be?
What's that?
If you were a dad joke, what dad joke would you be?
Yeah.
Does that appease you, Eric?
That's pretty good.
I could ask a question of you on air, but I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
So I will ask you two my question that I would be of what song would define you? What would be the song that you would tell somebody defines you?
Subdivisions by Rush.
Why? You live in a subdivision?
No. Because in the lyrics themselves.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking why, because I don't know the song.
The song basically addresses your time in high school, growing up, and all of the issues that you come across, peer pressure, those kinds of things. And honestly, that is a song that has stuck with me ever since it came out on the Signals album. And notice I said album. That's how long ago it came out.
That's what we still call them.
Ever since it
That's what I still call them anyway.
Ever since it came out on vinyl, Subdivisions by Rush has always been that song that has done that for me.
Okay. Scott?
Jeez, I have no clue. One song I don't know. Intergalactic Beastie Boys.
Why would Intergalactic define you? Did you want to be an astronaut at some point?
Say it again?
Did you want to be an astronaut at some point?
I was wrong. I said the right. It's Brass Monkey.
I don't want to know how that defines you, Scott. I'm going to skip that.
I don't. Jesus will not shut
There are
up
people
tonight,
who are
apparently.
afraid now of Scott Flood
Jesus
after that
is
answer.
just wants to sit on the episode.
Is Will typing in all caps about this?
Will's still doing like stone cold things. Will actually with a pretty good one that probably defines.
Zaxby's Boneless Wings Meal couldn't possibly get any better. I stand corrected. The Great 8 Boneless Wings Meal with your choice of sauce, just $7.99. Only at Zaxby's. And see Ghostbusters Afterlife exclusively in movie theaters. No scope.
This is a threat like none our galaxy has faced before.
Billions of lives will be at risk.
Not on our watch. Let's fly.
Wasn't me.
You're never responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card.
Quite a few people. Going back to Garth Brooks, much too young to feel this damn old. I feel that one sometimes. I know that.
So were you talking about a song that like literally in the words
defines
and the lyrics defines you?
If you were going to say listen to this song to know me.
If this song was there, then that would identify who Scott Flood is. Then who is?
No clue. I honestly cannot. One song.
Can you help us out here?
One song. No,
Scott, could I be possibly mean and suggest one? It's from a band you love.
Oh yeah, here, go ahead.
Driving and Crying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go
it was an
ahead.
easy one.
Go ahead.
They had a hit with Straight to Hell.
When you practice these things in the mirror, I bet they're funny. But
hey, I got a laugh out there, so I'll take it. Yes, I will take it.
That's just because she's anti-me in every single aspect. When you're married to Jesus,
it was too easy. I had to take it.
You're always wrong. So
people on the Twitch pitch are deep in thought trying to figure out the answer to this. This came from a great question that we didn't necessarily understand at first.
And notice how many sips of beer Scott has had during this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might need another one.
If I had... I don't know. I have a problem like trying to get.
Oh, I know.
Like every song.
Sometimes it comes fast to me. Sometimes it doesn't.
Like one of the songs that comes to me though, and I don't know if it like says about me. I would say "Home Sweet Home" by Motley Crue.
Yeah.
And but I don't know that there's exactly a reason behind that other than that song just exemplifies a lot of the things that like you can hear the emotion, you can hear the things in the. About a band that's been on the road and but you can portray that to a lot of aspects to your own life.
No, that makes total sense.
And there's those few songs that we all hear, those handful of songs that no matter no matter what movie the movie is, when it comes on television, you stop and you watch it. There's a handful of songs that no matter where you hear them, no matter what, and to me that's one of them. It's just one of those songs. But does it like say me? Probably not. But
I don't know if you lived like Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee in that period. No.
No, I didn't live as hard. No.
Nobody did.
Not yet.
Nobody did.
This tour is not living up to the same tour as theirs?
No.
We're doing something wrong then.
No,
we're
not.
Millions.
We're good. We're good. I don't need an adrenaline needle to kickstart my heart. No, I don't. My song would be "Find the River" by REM. The end of Automatic for the People is one of my favorite, from an album, the end of an album. But Find the River is it's kind of, you can take it however you want in a lot of different directions, but the very basics of it are around. What do you have to say, Scott? Oh, sorry. The basics are, in my mind, about being kind of optimistic and looking for the good and looking for constantly evolving and that kind of stuff. So Find the River is me. That's the one I would definitely say, here, listen to this, and maybe you'll understand me to some degree.
There is one that I had always thought, going back to Driving and Crying, it depends on how well you know Driving and Crying.
I still think it's Power Blank and House.
Powerhouse?
Yeah, Powerhouse.
From Whisper Tames the Lion. Oh, look at the fancy pants on this guy.
It wasn't 90s hip-hop or 2000s hip-hop, so he was good.
Yeah, seriously.
He was good.
It's ludicrous on the Driving and Crying album. Check Your Tears at the Door, same album, Whisper Tames the Lion, which is just a song about, when he passes away, everybody don't be sad, kind of thing. Is always one of those things that I had always said when I do pass away, play that song.
Yeah.
So when you talk about something to that effect, that actually could.
That's a good one. No, that's a really good one. See, you had a good one.
Oh, you just had to give me a minute. I was
That's
just
fine.
Not,
That's fine. That's
fine.
fine.
Yeah, you got to just pander.
That's
for
what
a
it
little
takes
bit.
sometimes. All right, Scott, we are not on the road next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving.
Well, we are on roads. It's just not.
No, we're not doing
an
a show
appearance.
next Thursday.
Yeah,
we're not doing an appearance anywhere. We're not doing a tour stop that Scott books us for. Where are we in a couple of weeks?
Where are
Tell
we
the
in a couple of weeks?
I keep handing it to you.
Yeah, I
We
was trying to set you
are
up.
at Good Word Brewing and Brew House in Duluth on December 2nd. It's actually going to be the end of the tour for 2021. Eric and TJ and Megan and everybody at Home Depot that wants to come out and sponsor the show.
Yes.
Because they really need to know that Jesus is a part of this thing. So, but we're going to actually have a huge show. We've got, from what I understand, correct, Jack Collison?
The hope is Jack Collison will be available to come out and hang out with us, talk about Atlanta United 2, talk about his career, talk about the development work that he's done with the twos, with the academy, some work he's done with the first team as well in training sessions. So, yeah, that is the plan, is Jack Collison will be hanging out with us.
And we are working on having some Atlanta United former players also coming out that are friends with Jack. That'll also be out there hanging out with us, just to be out there and hang out. Everybody can meet them, talk with them the whole night. It's going to be a great night up in Duluth. Good Word is some good friends of mine. They have an unbelievable facility. They have unbelievable food.
I love their story.
Yeah, their food is amazing. They have a whole brew pub, the whole 9 yards. They are amazing. The little downtown Duluth area has really become kind of cool, really neat. It's a great place to end our season this year as we start looking towards 2022. And I'm excited. I'm excited that we're going to be done
for like a month or two.
Yeah, we're going to have the NASCAR off season.
Yeah,
so
basically, we're going to have the MLS off season because it's going to be very, very busy as we jump straight back into it to kick things off early in 2022. Thank you to everybody here at New Realm. The food and the beer here is also excellent. The Mexican stout is amazing and highly recommended. Come over and get your growler filled with it. Such a great venue here, right off the Beltline in Midtown Atlanta. So New Realm Brewing, make sure you're following them on all the social media platforms so you know about all of their new releases. I will definitely be getting more of this Mexican stout because it is incredible. One of the best beers I've had in a long time. Great venue here. Thanks to everybody who hung out with us tonight. We will not have a show in the morning. As I said, we will have a show on our Twitch channel from Yankee Stadium. Mike Conti and I will get you ready early on match day on Sunday. And then on 92.9 The Game, we'll be live at 2:30 for our pregame coverage, Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff is at 3:18. We'll have an abbreviated full-time report because we'll be getting on a plane to come straight back after the match, hopefully preparing for a match against the New England Revolution in a little over a week's time. But we'll be back on Monday with Overreaction Monday to recap everything from the MLS weekend and Atlanta and NYC. Make sure you're following us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be live with you on Sunday from Yankee Stadium. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.